Hey there, Neutron Tech crew. Today we're watching Western Pioneer build an authentic log cabin out in Oklahoma. Way back before steel beams and poured concrete became the backbone of American building, log structures represented what it meant to survive on the frontier. Everything begins with picking the right spot. You need trees nearby, good sun exposure, proper water runoff, and reasonable access to other essentials. He's assembling and trimming each log by hand. Slow, demanding work, but it's the only way to get tight seams and a solid frame. Power tools aren't an option here, so he's working with an axe and a manual saw. That interlocking pattern you're seeing? It's basically the same crib design you'd find in old mine supports. It's vernacular building at its core. Strength comes from weight, layering, and locked corners rather than metal fasteners. The notches let each piece settle into the one below it, creating a friction hold that keeps everything locked together. Constructing shelter like this back in the day wasn't just hard labor, it took real guts and determination. Oklahoma was especially brutal. Bone-dry ground, hardly any trees, and your closest neighbor might be 20 miles out. Once the walls get higher, he decides to add some extra security by nailing through the roof beams. Nails weren't part of the original old-school approach, but he's not taking chances with stability. Those straight-grain boards he's using look like cedar or pine based on the color and texture. Every plank has to stretch across uneven beams and get fastened down in a way that distributes weight properly and won't blow off in a storm. Cutting in a doorway at this point changes the whole nature of the project. Historically, doors weren't just functional. They represented a claim, a boundary, a transition from temporary refuge to actual dwelling. What he's doing here mirrors how pioneers thought use the terrain itself to form part of your walls and save materials. Going deep instead of building wide also helps brace the whole thing against those relentless prairie winds that used to tear across the plains. That red clay you're seeing is classic Oklahoma dirt, and it's a mixed bag, incredibly tough to dig through, exhausting work. But once you carve it out, it holds its shape beautifully and acts as natural insulation. Those deliberate axe swings aren't random. They're marking logs that need to slot together perfectly as the cabin walls go up. Getting each piece to settle snugly against the one beneath it creates a naturally interlocking structure that'll stand up to whatever weather comes its way. When you cut an opening for a window, you're basically creating a weak point in what should be a continuous wall. That's why extra support around the frame matters. It stops the settling weight from cracking things apart and gives the wood room to expand and contract through the seasons. Using milled timber for the window frame instead of round logs creates an interesting visual mix of refined and raw elements. No power tools, no shortcuts, just muscle and stubborn determination getting the job done. Before the next wall section goes up, the clay floor inside needs evening out to make a proper working platform. The clay they're using has this natural stickiness that holds together instead of crumbling apart, which is exactly what you need when earth itself becomes part of your structure. Out on the American frontier in the late 1800s, people dug homes right into hillsides because trees were scarce as hen's teeth. The earth itself became both insulator and shelter, keeping folks warm in winter and cool in summer without costing a dime. Working in that same spirit, smooth cedar planks get prepared for the interior walls. The deep red clay coming out of Oklahoma soil becomes the foundation for a traditional mud brick system. First step is digging down to where the subsoil sits, loaded with iron that gives the clay its rusty color. Smart thing about this pit, it doubles as a collection basin when rain falls, letting water soak into the clay and soften it naturally. Now comes harvesting grass-covered earth blocks, SOD bricks, using tools and methods from pioneer days. That cutting tool slices through the root-matted topsoil, defining rectangular chunks ready to stack. Back in the 1800s across the prairies, settlers couldn't find enough wood or stone to build with, so they used what they had plenty of, the grass-tangled dirt beneath their feet. The walls get their heat-storing ability from natural clay, while chunks of grassy turf blend the structure right into the landscape. Everything needed is literally underfoot, perfect for anyone trying to live off the land or recreate how settlers really did it. Those small windows weren't just about letting sunshine in, they let folks spot trouble coming from a distance and kept spirits from sinking in dark, cramped quarters. Now we're watching the complete start-to-finish creation of a bed held together with rope and made from raw timber. First step, stripping bark off freshly cut logs using a curved blade that peels away the rough outer layer to reveal the pale wood underneath. The logs stay round and imperfect, connected through carved slots and pegs or just tied together. That unpolished look matches exactly what you'd expect inside a hand-built log structure. Cross-bracing at angles keeps everything locked in place, so the frame won't shift sideways or collapse under pressure. It's what makes the bed sturdy enough to actually sleep on without falling apart. The really impressive part is how rope gets woven back and forth across the frame, creating a springy surface that holds your body weight. This crisscross lacing method goes back hundreds of years. It's what people used long before anyone thought of coil springs or factory-made slats. That old saying about sleeping tight, it actually comes from having to retighten these ropes after they'd stretch out from regular use. The cooking pit he's building follows old frontier designs that trap and hold heat really well. Getting it done means hauling heavy stones from wherever you can find them, dry creek beds, cliff faces, anywhere erosion has broken them loose. Things shift towards something more sophisticated with the addition of a cast iron stove fitted inside the cabin. This upgrade delivers consistent warmth and makes winters way more bearable than huddling around an open flame ever could. Once the vertical section of pipe is in place, the angled elbow piece does the critical work of channeling smoke outside through the wall. Back in the late 1800s, thousands of families pushed westward, lured by promises of land they could claim under government programs like the Homestead Act or through wild land grabs. Armed with basic tools, saws, axes, and raw grit, they transformed standing timber into walls and roofs, working exclusively with whatever trees grew within reach. Every single log got shaped, carved with interlocking notches, and lifted into place by hand, slowly rising into a shelter amid endless grasslands. These simple structures weathered brutal prairie gales, baking summer heat, and thick drifts of winter frost. Western Pioneer puts together what's known as a Dutch door. You might also hear it called a stable door or half door. What makes it special is the split down the middle, letting the top and bottom sections swing open independently. This particular one has that rough-hewn, handmade quality that matches perfectly with the log cabin aesthetic. The wood planks, probably pine or maybe cedar, get held together with diagonal supports that keep everything square and sturdy. Here's the clever part: you can swing open just the upper section for ventilation and sunlight while the lower portion stays closed, which works great if you've got livestock wandering around or toddlers you want to keep corralled. Now comes the critical work of sealing up where the roof planes meet, basically the spot where trouble loves to sneak in. The sharp-angled joint created here actually pushes water away from this meeting point, which strengthens the whole roof system. Skip installing a proper ridge cap and you're asking for problems. Rain gets in, snow melts through, wind blows crud into the gaps, and before long you've got rot eating away at your structure and leaks ruining your interior. Inside the cabin, extra wooden strips get mounted crosswise over the cedar planking that forms the ceiling. These aren't just decorative, they physically clamp down on those planks and help spread out the considerable weight pressing down from above. With the wooden framework and shingles complete, it's time to move on to the living roof, what some people call a sod roof or green roof. This approach ranks among the most ancient and environmentally sound ways to cover a building. First up is laying down a waterproof barrier, probably thick polyethylene sheeting, which keeps the timber separated from all that earth that's coming next. Stretching this waterproof layer over the entire roof creates a defensive barrier that stops moisture from soaking through. Fastening down the edges prevents dirt and organic matter from working their way underneath and compromising that protection over time. Then the actual dirt slinging begins. Looks basic, but it demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of thermal mass, erosion control, and visual concealment. When that final scoop of soil gets smoothed across the roof, the project stands as proof of careful craftsmanship, historical knowledge, and creative problem solving. To give the roof and main ridge beam extra muscle, vertical posts will get installed inside the cabin. This is standard practice for log structures or any building carrying a sod roof. These posts take pressure off the roof span and transfer weight down to the foundation. The final touch, getting the chimney up and running. We're talking about a straightforward wood stove setup. Nothing fancy, just solid functionality designed for a shelter topped with earth or sod. The vertical design does exactly what it needs to. Pulls smoke upward and out, keeping the draft strong. That's crucial when temperatures drop and you need clean, efficient burning without smoke backing up into your living space. What makes it practical is how basic the materials are. Snow's coming down hard, but that won't keep the Western Pioneer from firing it up. The standout feature here, that stovepipe chimney. It's not just slapped together. Every piece serves a purpose, keeping air moving right and heat consistent when the weather turns brutal. Step inside and you'll see it. Everything reflects a life built around effort, straightforward choices, and intention. What we're watching unfold here is really a story about doing things yourself and tapping into that age-old human drive to create shelter, adjust to your surroundings, and make it work. His approach? Don't rush. Let your gut, the weather, and what's around you shape how things come together. After taking a breather, it's time to tackle the walls with daub, the old-school way. This mixture combines clay and straw to create both structure and insulation in traditional construction. The soil here works perfectly because of how it holds together when you add fibrous material. Cutting the straw into shorter pieces helps it bond better throughout the clay. Once mixed in, you get this sticky textured compound that's easy to work with. Feeling it by hand is key. Too dry and it falls apart, too wet and it slides right off. It seals up the irregular spaces between logs, blocking wind and holding in heat. time to bring in some furniture and turn this structure into an actual home. Each handcrafted item adds both usefulness and personality. This cabin isn't under construction anymore, it's a complete inviting space that was earned through real work. Make sure you check out Western Pioneer's channel for more authentic recreations of early American frontier living. These final details represent the end of the building journey, both practically and symbolically. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more full builds from start to finish. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.